This is Natalie McLaughlin interviewing Heidi McLaughlin at the McLaughlin household in Medford, Oregon on October 21st, 2025, for the purpose of an oral history project assignment in Pacific Northwest literature. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Heidi McLaughlin. I'm Natalie's mom, like she said. I am 44 years old, and I grew up in the Pacific Northwest in Eugene, Oregon.
How nice.
So you said you grew up in Eugene, Oregon, and who did you grow up with? And do you have any memories of growing up there?
Most definitely, yeah. I grew up with my two parents and my sister Tina in Eugene, like I said, and I have tons of memories of growing up in Eugene, and hopefully I'll be sharing them with you.
You said you grew up with your parents. Did they grow up in Eugene as well, or where did they come from?
No, my parents actually moved to Eugene shortly before I was born, actually. They met in Minnesota. My dad has kind of lived all over the country, though. He was born in Kansas. He lived in New York. He ended up in Minnesota. My mom grew up in Minnesota her entire life. They met at the University of Minnesota. And when they finished school, they both got jobs in Rochester, Minnesota. Worked for a while there, and then decided they were ready for a new adventure. And they packed up their stuff in their big brown van and drove across the country. And they lived in San Diego and house sat my grandparents' house for a year before deciding that they both wanted to go back to school, and they both decided that they wanted to go to the University of Oregon. And so they moved to Eugene and applied to graduate school at the U of O.
Do you know what made your parents choose the U of O?
After living in San Diego, they both liked the West Coast, but weren't really sure if California was for them. And after doing a little research, they thought that the idea of the Pacific Northwest and Eugene in particular seemed like a good place for them to end up. So they moved up there and have lived there ever since, and they love it.
And what did your parents go to graduate school for?
My dad went to graduate school for physics, and he ended up getting his PhD in physics from the U of O as well. And my mom got her master's in early childhood education and worked with special needs kids from birth to 5, helping the kids and their families learn and establish goals for schools and, to help them be successful moving forward.
That's awesome.
Are you happy that you grew up in Eugene, or did you ever want to live somewhere else?
So that's kind of a funny question, because I think that every kid, no matter where they grow up, wishes that they live somewhere else. They always think that something else is going to be better out there. So when I was growing up in Eugene as a young child, it was great. You don't know any better. When I entered my high school years, all I wanted to do was get out of Eugene. I thought that anywhere else would be better, but especially I wanted to move to sunny Southern California and go to college. That was my goal. I did end up moving to California, not the sunny southern part, but kind of the cloudy northern part, which is actually a lot like the Pacific Northwest, especially where I grew up in Eugene. Lots of fog, especially, lots of rain. But while I lived away from Eugene and the Pacific Northwest, I kept finding myself wanting to get back, and we spent years and years just trying to find the right opportunity to move back to Eugene or Oregon or the Pacific Northwest, just because that's what felt like home.
Where specifically in California did you move to, and why?
We lived in Eureka, California, which is on the north coast of California. in the middle of the Redwoods in Humboldt County. And I moved there because when I was in college, my boyfriend at the time was from Humboldt. And after being together for a couple years and graduating from college, he was heading back to Eureka. I didn't have a plan yet, and so I decided that I would give Eureka a try.
If you were the one deciding, would you pick for Humboldt County to be in the Pacific Northwest?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually feel like a lot of Northern California, especially the north coast of California, is a lot like the Pacific Northwest. But, it also just makes sense for it to be part of the Pacific coast as well. So I guess I don't really have strong feelings whether it should be included or not. But it does have a lot of similarities. The fog and the rain, the forests, the greenery, all the stuff that the Pacific Northwest is famous for, Humboldt County also has.
What, to you, obviously you said they were close, but what were the differences between Eugene and Humboldt County and now Medford?
Well, I lived there at different points in my life, so it might be a little hard to compare, but for sure, there's a lot more differences between Eugene and Medford relating to the weather. I will honestly say that Humboldt County was very similar to Eugene in that regard. It was, though, a lot smaller, and we were very, very isolated in Humboldt County. It was a good 2.5 hours before we could even reach the next town. And even those towns weren't that large. To get to the city, it was 4.5 hours. And so it was just a very isolated area, for better and for worse. Sometimes we would get stuck there because of landslides that would block the roads, or other weather. Eugene was nice because it was a smaller town, but if you wanted to go to somewhere that was bigger, you could always drive, a short 2-hour drive up to Portland, get your shopping done. You could go watch the Trailblazers play, just get a little bit more of that city feel, and then come back to Eugene where you didn't have to deal with the traffic. So it was great. Medford, like I said, is quite a bit different just because it is so much warmer here. But as the weather has cooled off now these last couple weeks, it is starting to feel more like the Pacific Northwest that I grew up in.
Going back to some of your memories that you have growing up in Eugene and living in Humboldt County and then back to Medford, what are some of your favorite that you can recall?
So a lot of my memories of being in the Pacific Northwest are actually with my 2 kids, and all the adventures that we've had in the Pacific Northwest. I have a son who's now in college in California, and I have a daughter, Natalie, who is a junior at St. Mary's. And so I said my parents have lived in Eugene, since I was born, and have lived in the same house actually ever since. So a ton of my memories involve my parents' house, the neighborhood that I grew up in, and then taking my kids back to the neighborhood I grew up in and having them get to know the people that were close to me while I was growing up, and having them get to know the neighbors and get that neighborhood feel, because where we lived in Humboldt County, we actually didn't get to have any neighbors. We lived on a larger piece of property and didn't have that experience. So that was kind of fun to be able to roam around the neighborhood, ride our bikes, right out the front door. We really enjoyed a couple special things. One being the Enchanted Forest up near Salem. I don't know if anyone else has been there, but I grew up going there as a child and then took my kids, and we spent at least a day every single summer going there. We've spent many, many days at Wildlife Safari, which is a very cool adventure animal park in Winston, Oregon. And I have, like I said, many, 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 many memories there. Also have lots of memories taking my kids camping on the Oregon coast with my parents. I also grew up camping a ton, and it was fun to revisit places like Honeyman State Park and Brookings and Bandon, and run around the dunes and, put your feet in the freezing cold Pacific Ocean, and, set up our tents and cook marshmallows and all the fun that we could have there. I took my kids river rafting for the first time on the Mackenzie River, which I also did as a child. So a lot of my memories I got to recreate for my kids as they were growing up and, experiencing the same things that I got to when I was a kid.
Are you happy that you got to raise your kids, not in the Pacific Northwest, of course, but very close and alike, or do you wish that you had somewhere else to raise them?
Oh, no, I was very, very happy to raise my kids where I did, but also to be close enough to my own parents to be able to go up and visit them anytime we wanted or to have them come down. I think it's an awesome, awesome place to raise your kids. People are very kind and generous and friendly, and I just love the relaxed feel of the Pacific Northwest.
Living out of it and in it, what are a few stereotypes from people in the Pacific Northwest that are true?
About the people in the Pacific
Yes.
Northwest? So for sure, I would say the number one thing is that everyone's a hippie, which when I grew up in Eugene was actually kind of true. And I would say that when I moved to Humboldt County, it wasn't that much different, but everyone thinks that everyone outside of the Pacific Northwest thinks that everyone that lives here is a hippie that has either long hair or shaggy hair, beards. They wear Birkenstocks. They wear, Columbia jackets or vests, and Keens and Tevas were very popular. Super outdoorsy. Maybe didn't shower all the time. I guess that goes along with being a hippie. Smoking weed is absolutely another one. And I don't know if that's more in the Pacific Northwest or Eureka, which is, I guess, another reason why they were so similar. Yes, absolutely. The marijuana, the hippie vibe, the relaxed culture. That's what everyone thought we all were.
What makes the Pacific Northwest special to you?
I think the main thing is just all the memories that I've had, and like I said, the fact that I got to grow up in the Pacific Northwest, and then I got to share the same childhood memories that I had, especially the ones that I loved with my own kids. It's a unique area. The world is slower in the Pacific Northwest. You can take time. The air seems cleaner. It smells better. It feels fresh. Everything is, it feels comfortable. You can wear what you want. You don't have to look a certain way. People, aren't obsessed with their looks or plastic surgery like they are in other places. You can just be yourself, I would say. And I've loved being able to live in that environment and have my kids live in that environment.
Do you have any questions for me?
Well, now that this is your first time living in the Pacific Northwest, what are your thoughts so far?
I like it. I think it's, like you said, a slower place to live. And not that Humboldt County was much different, but I enjoy it here, and I enjoy the weather, and I kind of enjoy seeing the stereotypes and seeing that they are true, and how, I don't know, just how people are quite nice here a lot of the time.
Do you have any favorite memories or experiences, I guess I should say, that you've had in the Pacific Northwest?
A lot of, like what you said, the wildlife safari and rafting and camping, they are all large highlights of my childhood, and all happened in the Pacific Northwest because of your childhood and what you grew up here. And so I did enjoy getting to experience what you experienced as a child, even though the world is so different now and there's all technology and social media and everything. I think that just being in the Pacific Northwest is a little closer to nature. Thank you, Heidi McLaughlin.
You're welcome.